The industrial robots have been used since the early 1960s, and since that time it has been implemented into so many factories. So actually, what is the effect of those robots in the development of industry? Hello everyone, this is Ayman Omar, and today I'm going to discuss a little important point about the effect of the industrial robot in the development of the industrial sector in some countries. According to the data from the International Federation of Robot, that robot has been focused mainly in Asia, especially in Japan, China, and South Korea, and has been also been used a lot in Europe and North America. So going back to the history, that robots has been developed in the US, but after that has moved to Japan in the early 60s. And actually, industrial robot was a key factor in the development of the Japanese industry in the 60s and the 70s. So it made Japan one of the leading industrial countries in the world, and this thanks to the industrial and to the robot development and implementation in the industry. So currently now actually also Asian countries such as China and South Korea are leading up to Japan industrial sector, and that's why they are using a lot of industrial robot in their industry. We have discussed in one of our earliest report that China now is buying robot more than any countries in the world. So almost they are buying mostly more than 40% of the industrial robot in the world, followed by Japan, then come United States, South Korea, and Germany. But actually, how actually those robots are affecting the industrial development? So let's take maybe a very simple example. So if you consider that we have a factory that have 1,000 workers, so we replace 10 workers with one robot. So actually now we can say that one robot will do 1% of the work. But if you have another factory that have only 10 workers and you replace 3 workers with one robot, so this robot is doing 30% of the work. That's why for the second case, the robot is more effective than the first case. And this what leads us to this term, the density of robots in the workforce. So how actually is we calculate the density of the robot? Mostly according to the data of the International Federation of Robot, they calculate how many numbers of robots to each 10,000 workers. So even China is buying a lot of robots, but if we check the density of robot in China, we will find that it is 140 robots for each 10,000 workers. But that's, according to the list, it put us China in the 20th ranking. So it's not the top. So maybe some people they say, okay, Japan is the top one in the list, but actually Japan is not the top, it's the fourth behind Germany. So Japan have 327 robots per 10,000 workers, and Germany have 338. But if you want to find countries that have more high density, so we'll find it's South Korea. South Korea have 778 industrial robot for each 10,000 workers. But maybe you'll be surprised that South Korea is not in the top of the list. The top of the list is Singapore with 831 robot for each 10,000 workers. So how actually we can see this effect of this industrial robot on the development of the industry of these countries? So maybe maybe Singapore is not very famous as industrial nation because it's a very small country. So the workforce that works in the industrial sector in Singapore is not more than 1 million workers. That's why, because it's very concentrated, that's why they are using a lot of robots in this like very small island. But if you look at South Korea, South Korea have a working force almost like 6.8 million workers, which is almost 24% of the total workforce in South Korea. And that's why we are seeing that how actually those robots are affecting. If you compare South Korea to Japan, Japan have much higher workforce. The workforce in Japan is almost 17 million. But actually also Japan is very famous that they have been using robots for a long time, but now South Korea is catching up to Japan. So we can see that like very famous companies, South Korean companies, like especially for automotive like Kia and Hyundai, for electronics like Samsung and LG. So we are seeing that how actually the robot has been used, because mostly we know that industrial robots are highly being used in automotive and in electronics. So mostly 30% of the robots are being used in automotive, 25% are being used in electronics. So if you want to be like very famous and contribute a lot of development in the sectors, that's why you have to rely on robots. So this is not compared to China, but of course China have a very big workforce. Almost they are 232 million workers working in the industrial sector in China. But actually China now is developed like using a lot of industrial robot. So since like 2010, China has been like accelerating its installation of industrial robot. So it used to be like the density of like this robot density in China used to be below the world average. But since 2016, now is surprise is almost reached to the average like world average density, and now is going above that average. So the total average now is around 99 robot per 10,000 workers. China have reached to 140. But if we look at the data for the robot density, we will find that there's a huge concentration in Europe than actually Asia. Then Europe, that they are almost, the average in Europe is about 140, but in Asia is 91, below the international average. So that's why, like for countries, if they want to develop their industry, that's why they have to rely on robots. If we can see that how is the effect of robots, especially if you have industries like automotive and electronics. Have enjoyed this talk. So until you see you again, thank you for watching.